anytime capital seeks to dominate labor, there'll be a ruthless, uncompromising struggle on the part of labor until it comes to crush capital and dominate it. This is a fact. My history demonstrates that. We came here as chattel slaves for centuries. We fought and fought and fought until we crushed it. Dominate labor, there'll be a ruthless, and now we've got to rise up and crush that one. That's to declare that Karl Marx didn't invent socialism. It's there for all to see. Karl Marx's great contribution to the world was in the area of historical materialism and dialectical materialism, something you need to know if you know about socialism. But since you don't know about socialism, you don't even know the words. And not only does the enemy keep you ignorant, you stay ignorant. You won't ever go read a book about socialism. Why read a book about socialism? They already told me in my class it ain't no good. You will not even read a book about socialism. Why, you don't even read a book about your history. We come to inspire you to learn. We come to tell you that when you come to serve a people, you must know as much as you can. The more you know, the better able you are to serve people. You must come to understand that the only way you can think about your people's struggle is when you are involved in your people's struggle. And if you're not involved in your people's struggle, don't fool yourself. Don't let capitalism let you think that you're thinking about your people. The capitalist system makes people stupid and then makes them arrogant in their stupidity. Not only do they not know, but they do not want to know. I've seen it everywhere. As a matter of fact, they take positions based on total ignorance. I told you, I'm anti-capitalist. Karl Marx did not invent socialism. If I'm sitting in Libya, in the desert, and I'm doing any research with capital and labor without ever having heard of Karl Marx, I will come to the same conclusion that he did. That any time capital seeks to dominate labor, there'll be a ruthless, uncompromising struggle on the part of labor until it comes to crush capital and dominate it. This is a fact. My history demonstrates that. We came here as chattel slaves for centuries. We fought and fought and fought until we crushed it. Now we're just slaves of the wage, and now we've got to rise up and crush that one. That's to declare that Karl Marx didn't invent socialism. It's there for all to see. Karl Marx's great contribution to the world was in the area of historical materialism and dialectical materialism, something you need to know if you know about socialism. But since you don't know about socialism, you don't even know the words. And not only does the enemy keep you ignorant, you stay ignorant. You won't ever go read a book about socialism. Why read a book about socialism? They already told me in my class it ain't no good. You will not even read a book about socialism. Why, you don't even read a book about your history. We come to inspire you to learn. We come to tell you that when you come to serve a people, you must know as much as you can. The more you know, the better able you are to serve people. You must come to understand that the only way you can think about your people's struggle is when you are involved in your people's struggle. And if you're not involved in your people's struggle, don't fool yourself. Don't let capitalism let you think that you're thinking about your people. The capitalist system makes people stupid and then makes them arrogant in their stupidity. Not only do they not know, but they do not want to know. I've seen it everywhere. As a matter of fact, they take positions based on total ignorance. I told the petty bourgeoisie everywhere will be running for cover, but the masses will spare them not. Consequently, we who have dedicated our lives to the people's struggle, we who, knowing that the people will always be free, we, understanding that we must make a contribution to qualify our struggle since the 60s, have been dedicating all our energies to only one task: the organization of the masses of our people. The organization of the masses of our people. We are not running for mayor, we're not running for president. No changes can come from the top down, we're not stupid. Changes can only come from the bottom up. The masses and the masses alone can make them. If you want to learn something from the 60s, the lesson is simple: organized masses of the people. The petty bourgeoisie everywhere will be running for cover, but the masses will spare them not. Consequently, we who have dedicated our lives to the people's struggle, we who, knowing that the people will always be free, we, understanding that we must make a contribution to qualify our struggle since the 60s, have been dedicating all our energies to only one task: the organization of the masses of our people. The organization of the masses of our people. We are not running for mayor, we're not running for president. No changes can come from the top down, we're not stupid. Changes can only come from the bottom up. The masses and the masses alone can make them. If you want to learn something from the 60s, the lesson is simple: organize the masses of the people. Marx did not invent socialism. If I'm sitting in Libya, in the desert, and I'm doing any research with capital and labor without ever having heard of Karl Marx, I will come to the same conclusion that he did. That any time capital seeks to dominate labor, there'll be a ruthless, uncompromising struggle on the part of labor until it comes to crush capital and dominate it. This is a fact. My history demonstrates that. We came here as chattel slaves for centuries. We fought and fought and fought until we crushed it. Now we're just slaves of the wage, and now we've got to rise up and crush that one. That's a display that Karl Marx didn't invent socialism. It's there for all to see. Karl Marx's great contribution to the world was in the area of historical materialism and dialectical materialism, something you need to know if you know about socialism. But since you don't know about socialism, you don't even know the words. And not only does the enemy keep you ignorant, you stay ignorant. You won't ever go read a book about socialism. Why read a book about socialism? They already told me in my class it ain't no good. You will not even read a book about socialism. Why, you don't even read a book about your history. We've come to inspire you to learn. We've come to tell you that when you come to serve a people, you must know as much as you can. The more you know, the better able you are to serve people. You must come to understand that the only way you can think about your people's struggle is when you are involved in your people's struggle. And if you're not involved in your people's struggle, don't fool yourself. Don't let capitalism let you think that you're thinking about your people. The capitalist system makes people stupid and then makes them arrogant in their stupidity. Not only do they not know, but they do not want to know. I've seen it everywhere. As a matter of fact, they take positions based on total ignorance. I told you, I'm anti-capitalist. Karl Marx did not invent socialism. If I'm sitting in Libya, in the desert, and I'm doing any research with capital and labor without ever having heard of Karl Marx, I will come to the same conclusion that he did. That any time capital seeks to dominate labor, there'll be a ruthless, uncompromising struggle on the part of labor until it comes to crush capital and dominate it. This is a fact. My history demonstrates that. We came here as chattel slaves for centuries. We fought and fought and fought until we crushed it. Now we're just slaves of the wage, and now we've got to rise up and crush that one. That's a display that Karl Marx didn't invent socialism. It's there for all to see. Karl Marx's great contribution to the world was in the area of historical materialism and dialectical materialism, something you need to know if you know about socialism. But since you don't know about socialism, you don't even know the words. And not only does the enemy keep you ignorant, you stay ignorant. You won't ever go read a book about socialism. Why read a book about socialism? They already told me in my class it ain't no good. You will not even read a book about socialism. Why, you don't even read a book about your history. We've come to inspire you to learn. We've come to tell you that when you come to serve a people, you must know as much as you can. The more you know, the better able you are to serve people. You must come to understand that the only way you can think about your people's struggle is when you are involved in your people's struggle. And if you're not involved in your people's struggle, don't fool yourself. Don't let capitalism let you think that you're thinking about your people. The capitalist system makes people stupid and then makes them arrogant in their stupidity. Not only do they not know, but they do not want to know. I've seen it everywhere. As a matter of fact, they take positions based on total ignorance. I told you, I'm anti-capitalist. Karl Marx did not invent socialism. If I'm sitting in Libya, in the desert, and I'm doing any research with capital and labor without ever having heard of Karl Marx, I will come to the same conclusion that he did. That any time capital seeks to dominate labor, there'll be a ruthless, uncompromising struggle on the part of labor until it comes to crush capital and dominate it. This is a fact. My history demonstrates that. We came here as chattel slaves for centuries. We fought and fought and fought until we crushed it. Now we're just slaves of the wage, and now we've got to rise up and crush that one. That's a display that Karl Marx didn't invent socialism. It's there for all to see. Karl Marx's great contribution to the world was in the area of historical materialism and dialectical materialism, something you need to know if you know about socialism. But since you don't know about socialism, you don't even know the words. And not only does the enemy keep you ignorant, you stay ignorant. You won't ever go read a book about socialism. Why read a book about socialism? They already told me in my class it ain't no good. You will not even read a book about socialism. Why, you don't even read a book about your history. We come to inspire you to learn. We come to tell you that when you come to serve a people, you must know as much as you can. The more you know, the better able you are to serve people. You must come to understand that the only way you can think about your people's struggle is when you are involved in your people's struggle. And if you're not involved in your
Revolutionary greetings, Africans, wherever you might be, in the valleys, savannas, forests, and deserts of our glorious motherland, Africa. In every street, home, and tent, in our ancestral lands, and throughout our exile in the continents to which we were forcibly taken, whether stolen by the brutal hands of capitalist slavery or driven from our homeland by imperialism to reclaim the resources and opportunities that stolen from us. To those in voluntary exile within friendly nation in Asia and South America, and in the territories liberated by African in the Caribbean. Comrades, sisters and brothers, it is a profound honor for us to stand here today to salute the memory of one of our leaders, a revolutionary who has passed on to the ancestors, one of our brightest teachers and fierce combat for Pan-Africanism, a fighter dedicated to our reclamation of Africa and to Africa's reclamation of everything stolen from her, her people, her resources, and her history. We are not gathered here today to merely commemorate a leader who left us. We are here to reclaim his voice, which remains alive long after his flesh has perished. We are here to reclaim the monumental ideas and theories, the revolutionary theses, the strategies, and the organizational practices that our ancestor Kwame Ture labored tirelessly to sustain as a guiding light at the end of the tunnel. Our ancestor Kwame remind us of the historical responsibility that every single African bears toward the revolution and toward our unification as African people under the umbrella of scientific socialism and Pan-Africanism. Our ancestor Kwame was never one of those who content themselves with empty slogans from ivory towers. He was a soldier in the field, a tireless organizer who imbibed himself with the masses, planting the seeds of consciousness and marching at the vanguard of the masses with the profound humility of great revolutionaries who understand that their individual self fade in the service of the people. In this dedication of the structural organizing that we remember when around 1993 or 1994, Ancestor Kwame Ture was selected as an honorary member of All African Women's Revolutionary Union. This was a testament of his constant and transformational contribution to developing the political line of African women, underscoring that our revolutionary liberation cannot be completed without the organization and leadership of African women. Comrades, we are here because a cold, hard reality demands it. We are here to answer a call that our ancestor Kwame honored with his blood and intellect. A call that gives our very presence today its meaning and its purpose, a call to organize. Kwame Ture constantly repeated with his uncompromised and radical clarity that emotion alone does not make a revolution, and that blind anger without an organizing structure vanishes like smoke. He used it to teach us that while mass movements flare up and fade, it is organization that sustain the struggle. It is the organizers who capture the raw energy of the masses and challenge it into unstoppable structural forces against the enemy. Today, as we confront this savage phase of imperialism, Kwame's foresight shines with us with absolute clarity. We are living today in a deadly new phase with US imperialism and its servant lead an overt global war of genocide against anyone who refused to bow down. This is the very empire Kwame Ture warned us about decades ago, when he analyzed its structure and showed us that it's an entity founded on structural violence, a beast that cannot survive or sustain itself except through the perpetration of violence and the triggering of wars to suck the blood of the people of the world. Look around you today, comrades. What's happening in Gaza and occupied Palestine? A genocidal war executed by the Zionist entity with the latest weaponry funding and absolute political backing from the United States is the living empowerment of imperialist monster that Kwame used to lash out against in his speeches and struggle. The war plans and bombing children in Palestine belongs to the exact same system that besieged and targeted the resistance in Iran and Cuba. It is the same system attempting to strangle the awakening and liberation of the people of Alliance of Sahel, and it's the same system launching its treachery war against South Lebanon. It is one single front and one enemy, just as Kwame taught us. He never separated the African and oppressed people struggle in America from the national liberation struggle in Guinea or the resistance in Vietnam and Palestine. He saw imperialism as a global network and asserted that the only antidote to it must be global and organized. Therefore, reclaiming the ideas of Kwame Ture today is a matter of life and death of our people. We anchor our gathering today by returning to his three-pillar thesis. First, revolutionary consciousness. Liberation begins in the mind. Kwame insisted that the revolution require a redefinition of concepts destroyed by colonialism and reclamation of our own narratives as African and oppressed people. Second, scientific socialism and Pan-Africanism. The liberation of Africa and the global south will never be achieved through the capitalism that enslaved us, but rather through a scientific socialist system that distributes resources equitably, and through an all-African objective that break artificial borders, turning the continent into a superpower capable of crushing imperialism. Third, organize. Kwame would always ask us with his sharp, biting sarcasm, "Are you angry? Fine. What organization are you working in? If you are not a member of a revolutionary organization fighting daily, you are not a part of the solution." The life and legacy, the lifetime consuming and the trench of confrontation will not be in vain. It will remain an internal beacon from which future generation will drive drive their compass of liberation. His thought will remain a guide for every African and for every oppressed human being in the face of earth, searching for the ideological immunity and end of century of enslavement and colonialism and the capitalist blunder that have ravaged the flesh of our continent and our people across all the world. Sisters and brothers, comrades, imperialism appears brutal today, precisely because it senses its fast approaching and in the face of the rising consciousness and resistance of the people, from the African Sahel to Gaza. Let us make this panel a practical step in responding to our Kwame Ture's call. Let us organize our ranks, link our struggle, and scream with one voice that has shaken the thrones of the oppression for years. Ready for revolution, victory for the oppressed people. Long live Kwame Ture, alive in the guns of the freedom fighters and the minds of the organizers. May his memory live on, inspire the masses and shattering the thrones of imperialism. Viva Kwame Ture! Viva Kwame Ture! And now, comrades, let us stop talking and let history speak. Let us listen to him challenging the world as always and watch this clip together with us. Thank you.
Its relationships to the 80s and relevance to the 21st century. I have picked about five areas which I would like to discuss. The first lesson that we can come to look from the 60s and gain is the understanding that the statement made by Abraham Lincoln is a true statement. You can fool some of the people some of the time, but you cannot fool all of the people all of the time. This statement can be understood within the context of United States imperialism and its role in the late 50s. In the late 50s, based on the resolutions passed at the 5th Pan-African Congress in 1945, a decision was made that Africans the world over must create mass organizations and mass movements to confront colonialism in Africa and the Caribbean in the final round, and also to confront racism and economic exploitation in the United States. From 1945 to 1960, within 15 short years of this conference, over 230 million Africans were to gain independence. Swiftly following in that wake, the Caribbean was to light a fire with independence movement, and of course, the United States of America itself, beginning its mass movement since the mid-50s with Martin Luther King and the Montgomery boycott, came to show mass movements everywhere. The American capitalist system, in the wake of the independence struggle in Africa, was trying everywhere to demonstrate to countries just struggling against colonial powers in Europe that it was not like the European powers, that it was not racist, it was democratic, it never had colonies, etc., etc. The African masses in America came to put that lie to rest quickly. Mass struggle inside the country came to demonstrate before the entire world that America was far from being a democratic country. It came to demonstrate, in fact, that countries in Africa were much further advanced in democracy than America ever was. Here, at least, Africans can vote. In America, they could not. One of the lessons, then, that we must draw squarely from the 60s is an understanding that real struggle must be left and must be understood only by the masses of the people. It is the masses of the people who could not believe the lies of America and came to struggle instinctively against these lies. This instinctive struggle must be properly understood. History, of course, is made both consciously and unconsciously. Last month in Miami, Africans came to unconsciously make history by revolting against brutal conditions and pushing humanity forward. But this was instinctive, unconscious, unplanned. Indeed, this is the same aspect of the struggle that we saw in the 60s, instinctive struggle. Thus, if we're to draw a conclusion just from this aspect of struggle, that is to say the people struggling unconsciously, unplanned, spontaneously, and instinctively, that since people have an instinctive love of freedom, everywhere they will struggle for freedom. The history of Africans in America proved this clearly. Nowhere have they consciously organized to make advance. All the advances they have made have been unconscious, instinctive, and spontaneous. Certainly you can understand what will happen when these people become thoroughly organized. The lessons then must be clear. Human beings, like animals of the lower form, have instincts. Human beings, unlike animals of the lower form, have the ability to think and reason. The lesson then must be clear. All of our instincts at all times, under all conditions, must be governed by reason. The instinctive struggle of the 60s, the spontaneous struggle of the 60s, the unconscious struggle of the 60s, if they are to serve to us as lessons, must come to be qualified in conscious movements, rational movements, and planned movements. This then seems to me to be the first lesson that we would have to acquire from the 60s. Of course, the capitalist system lies all the time. Some people think it lies some of the time, but it lies all of the time. And in lying, it has an attempt to make us think that in the 60s we were an organized people and everything was all right. We were not organized. We were a mobilized people. Thus are we to get a heavy lesson from the 60s. The lessons must be clear. A mobilized people, really, an instinctive people, a spontaneous people who struggle like animals. Even if we take the example of Miami, we can see it clearly here. In Miami, we're oppressed just like we are everywhere else. But we wait until an outside force provokes us into action. Everywhere you will see us, it is always an outside force that provokes the African masses into action, even on the campus here. I told some brothers the other day, you want to organize all the African students on the campus? I can do it overnight. All I got to do is write a filthy sign, derogatory against them, put them on the campus. Next day, they all come to the meeting. And one of the errors that must be corrected, a people struggling for their freedom cannot depend upon an external force to push them into motion. They must have an internal dynamism of their own. Consequently, the African masses, in drawing lessons from the 60s, must come clearly to understand that they must have a dynamism in their hands that tell them when to attack the enemy, how to attack the enemy, and where to carry their struggle. Thus, the 60s must come to be qualified from a mobilized struggle to an organized struggle. We say they fight like animals. You back an animal up against the wall, and the animal, even a rabbit, will come out striking at you until you back up. Those Africans, once provoked, come out striking wildly as they do in Miami. The police retreat, give them some concessions, they sit down, and then the police comes back with more repression. None of the gains made by a mobilized people can be maintained. It is only an organized people who can make gains and use those gains to further their struggle. Indeed, the gains made by the 60s, since they were made by an unorganized people in a state of mobilization, have not been used by the people, but in fact used by the enemy against the people. It is clear for the history of Africans in America that unlike others in this country, their history is not the same, entirely different from everybody else. All those who came here expecting a better life. An African put on a slave ship from Africa knew he was coming to hell. It's a fact. Consequently, the relationship between the country cannot be same unless this African has lost consciousness of his history and think that he came on the Mayflower. This aspect of organization from mobilization must be properly understood. No individual African in this country makes any advancement based on his individual talents or worth. All individual advancements are based on mass struggle. This must be properly understood and can be properly underlined for you once you know the history of Africans is not the same as the history of others. We make no progress in this country without shedding our blood. No one sitting in this audience can give me one example where Africans in this country have made any progress without shedding their blood. In order for them to get into a filthy 5 and 10 cent store, they must shed their blood. In order to sit on a bus where they pay the same amount as everybody else do, they must shed their blood. In order to get their children into state schools where they pay taxes more than anybody else, they must shed their blood. In order to get the vote which every immigrant gets the minute he comes here, they must shed their blood. Consequently, any advances made by any individual African is made as a result of mass struggle. Thus, that position does not belong to the individual African, it belongs to the people. Failure to use this position for the benefit of the people is a betrayal of the blood of the people. Consequently, when we come to correct the 60s and look properly at the lessons, we must become an organized people who, once having made gains, are capable of choosing for ourselves who will occupy those gains. They come to talk about some man named Brown who's going to be head of the Democratic Party. Who picked him? Who picked him? Did the African masses in the Democratic Party pick him? Not at all. As a matter of fact, the Democratic Party holds the Africans in great contempt. They have more elected positions than any other ethnic group in the Democratic Party and has no power in the party at all. They have 302 mayors, 20 congresspeople, 5,000 state, county, local. No other ethnic group in this country has those many elected officials, and still they have no power in the Democratic Party. Why? Because we are not organized. Consequently, to transform our movement, to push it to higher levels, which it must go, because we will arrive at our freedom, if even instinctively, we must come here to put ration and clear reasoning to our struggle and organize the masses of our people. The second.
All right, comrades, keep your comments coming in the Zoom chat, and remember, if you have questions about how we turn our anger into real power, put them in the Q&A box. And remember, we are not just here to talk, we are here to organize. Africans, recognizing that we are one global African family is only the first step. The real question Kwame Ture left us with is, what is your organization? What is your vessel for the fight? We are talking about crushing imperialism, and you cannot defeat an organized global monster with unorganized emotions. We must move from mere mobilization to permanent scientific organization. And to help us break this down, I am incredibly honored to introduce our next panelist, a powerhouse who doesn't just study Pan-African history, but actively put it into practice. Comrades, join me in welcome a fierce daughter of the African Revolution, Dr. Mjiba Frehiwot. Mjiba is a deeply dedicated Pan-Africanist, scholar, activist, and long-time militant organizer. She got her PhD in African Studies from Howard University, where her background research focused on the critical role of education in Pan-African liberation, proving that revolutionary consciousness must be organized and taught, not just inherited. Sister Mjiba is the unit and leading cadre of All Africans Revolutionary Party and an active member within All Africans Women Revolutionary Union. Her work is a living bridge between academic work and grassroots organizing and the crucial mobilization of African women at the forefront of this struggle. She spent years as a senior researcher fellow of the Institution of African Studies at the University of Ghana, ensuring that the radical legacy of Kwame Nkrumah and Kwame Ture remains a living blueprint for today's generation, rather than a relic of the past. From organizing student cadres at the university campus to conducting political education workshop globally, Sister Mjiba embodied exactly what it means to be an organizer. She is organized, she is ready for revolution, and she is ready to shake this space. So Sister Comrade Mjiba, the floor is yours. In the next 10 minutes, talk to us. How do we answer Kwame's call today? How do we build the permanent structures needed to crush this savage phase of imperialism? The mic is yours, sister.
Thank you. Thank you, Comrade Sawad, for this opportunity to share some thoughts about how we take Comrade Kwame Ture's clarion call from the 1980s and bring it into 2026 and beyond. And I'll start by, and I've put my timer on, and I want to apologize to the audience. Unfortunately, I'm in another meeting at the same time, so I'm going to speak and pop out. And the only reason I'm popping out is because I have another meeting that's as equally as important as this meeting, but comrades, you know, that are on the call can answer any questions on my behalf. So the first thing I want to just say that that's important to highlight is that Comrade Kwame Ture said we must organize and not mobilize in a reactionary fashion. And we have to remind ourselves that this clip was in the late 80s, moving into the 1990s. And so one could say, oh, well, we begin organizing and we're no longer mobilizing. But as we look through the historical record, we can see that African people globally, we seem to have a knack for mobilizing and not necessarily organizing, not joining permanent independent organizations which are interested in totally transforming society and bringing a new and ushering in a new economic system and new political and social systems in society. So that's the first thing that I think is important to acknowledge, that as Kwame Ture suggested, that we can oftentimes react, right? So we react to conditions and contradictions that occur in society, and the things that occur are quite frankly disturbing, and they are gut-wrenching, and they're acts of injustice. And while the AAPRP, the All African People's Revolutionary Party, is not suggesting that we should not organize around the injustice of African people globally, we certainly are not suggesting that we should mobilize, because the difference between organization and mobilization is particularly important. Mobilization is a temporary institution or community or collective that is interested in solving a particular issue, like police brutality, like killing of the extrajudicial killings of African people, like taking immigrants out of particular communities, like not providing basic rights to the community. All of those things are gallant issues that we need to organize around. But if we don't understand the root of the problem, those problems will continue to recur, which is why in 2026, we're having the same conversation that Kwame Ture had in the late 1980s. So that's the first thing that I think is important. We also must recognize our enemy. It's unfortunate, but some of us think that the enemy is our governments and their level of corruption. And yes, some of our governments are participating in corrupt behavior, but they're not the fundamental contradiction. Some of us believe that our enemy is the petty bourgeois, the people who are in the middle class and who maybe drive nice cars and perhaps who have so-called good jobs. Some of us may believe even that in places, unfortunately, like Southern Africa or South Africa, that the enemy are migrants who come from other so-called migrants that come from other African countries. We in the AAPRP, we are clear that the enemy is capitalism and imperialism. And until we clearly identify the enemy, any efforts that we make, whether through organization or mobilization, we will continue to, what do they say, spin your wheels, because we're not addressing the fundamental contradiction. This is one of the major problems that we as African people have globally, is that we mobilize to address minor problems in the larger scope of the imperialist project, right? And those smaller problems certainly impact individual African people. But the problem with only attacking smaller problems and not organizing systematically in a permanent organization to eradicate the capitalist system is that we will continuously fight those smaller problems until our lives are over, till our children's lives are over, until our grandchildren's lives are over. And something else that Kwame Ture said, which I think is particularly important, is that capitalism doesn't lies all the time. Capitalism doesn't lie some of the time. Capitalism lies all of the time. Why it's important to organize our people is because we need to counter the capitalist lies on a regular basis. For example, capitalism will lie to us as African people and say the reason why Africa is poor is because of our bad governance. We know that that is not the case. We know that Africa is so-called poor in regard to the capitalist system because of the impact of the neo-colonial project. I'll give you a perfect example. If we take the health sector across the continent, we have what we call pay-for-play healthcare. That means if you have money, you can have access to healthcare. If you don't have money, you don't have access to healthcare. This healthcare, this pay-for-play healthcare project emerged after the structural adjustment programs of the 1980s, in which the capitalist system, through the guise of the World Bank and IMF, told African countries that in order for us to give you loans, in order to bail out your nations, you must stop putting money into infrastructure. And so as a result, education, healthcare, all kinds of human needs were cut down because and became a pay-for-play project. Now, the fundamental contradiction is not that healthcare is not, it's not that healthcare is not accessible to everyone. The fundamental contradiction is that African people do not control our resources. Because if we controlled our resources, particularly those that are being extracted, like bauxite, like coltan, like gold, like cocoa, like many other resources across the continent and global Africa, including our human resources, our material and immaterial resources, we wouldn't be cash-strapped. We would have enough financial backing in order to actually have a robust healthcare and education system that is free and compulsory as a human right across the continent. So when we're thinking about the capitalist project, we have to remind ourselves that capitalism does not benefit the masses of people. In a capitalist system, you're either, as Sekou Touré says, part of the people's class or the anti-people's class. The capitalist project is part of the anti-people's class. I know my time is short, so I'm going to quickly round up. I want to get to how do we build permanent mass organizations. The first thing that we need to do is we need to recognize what is a permanent mass organization. And again, I have about 1 minute and 48 seconds, so I'll run through this quickly. One, those permanent, they have to have permanent structures with a long-term objective, like the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Our objective is the total liberation of Africa and African people under scientific socialism. That is our long-term objective. Permanent organizations with permanent structures also must have a permanent political education process, because capitalism lies all the time, not some of the time. And capitalism uses propaganda better than anybody that we know. From Hollywood movies to the educational curriculum in universities, primary schools, secondary schools, to everyday interaction inside of our families and communities. Capitalism is using propaganda, formal and non-formal and informal education, to politically educate the masses of African people to be against permanent organization, to be against the total liberation and unification of Africa. And they do this by saying, you too can be a capitalist. Quickly, as I'm moving, one, we also must link political parties and political organizations across the continent and global Africa. Kwame Nkrumah called for the All-African Committee for Political Coordination in the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare. We must begin to recognize that when Kwame Nkrumah in 1958 and the 8 African states called for the Organization of African Unity to be founded, it was not founded under the assumption from Nkrumah that it would be a top-down institution. It should be an institution of the people. We see that the OAU, now the AU, is toothless and really cannot lead the African continent or African people forward. So we must build the All-African Committee for Political Coordination that has revolutionary Pan-African institutions and political parties as permanent members. 2 more comments, and then I'm gonna kind of cut it down. Every African must contribute to the Pan-African revolution. And as we're organizing, we must remember one thing, not particularly, as African people globally. We must organize for the present, the past, and the future. We must remember that as we're organizing, we're not just organizing in this particular moment. We have to practice historical materialism and dialectics to understand that we are organizing for the past, the present, and the future. And we must take the tools from the past, the present, into the future. And lastly, as we begin to say, what do we do in this room? Because that's always a question. I have 3 quick things. 1, join a revolutionary permanent organization that has a political education process. 2, begin to unchain your mind from the capitalist system, which ultimately has dictated our entire lives from birth until this present moment. And 3, ensure that in your lifetime, you contribute more to the Pan-African revolution than you contribute to the capitalist system. And the 4th thing that I want to say is organize everywhere you are. Organize at your workplace. Organize in your church. Organize in your political organization. You can be a Catholic, a Muslim, a Christian, a traditionalist, and still be talking about Pan-Africanism. As I close, I want to just thank the Britain Organizing Area and the All African People's Revolutionary Party for the opportunity to make these interventions. And as I'll end with what I started with, that Kwame Ture says, we as African people must organize. We must move away from mobilization as a response. We must organize for a better life for African people. Forward ever.
Thank you. Many thanks, Sister Mjiba. And yes, organize. You have provided us with what we need to begin answering this call, and we will continue doing so with the rest of our panelists. Now, we move on to the second part of this panel with Comrade Agor. Brother Agor, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Comrade Sister Seward, and thank you very much, Comrade Mjiba. It was very, very important for us to understand the essence of organizing as to mobilization, as Kwame Ture has taught us. The next item we have is it's a video, by Kwame Ture, and he addresses the AAPRP here in Britain and Africans here in Britain and what our responsibilities are. And I think he also focuses more on the preservation of our dignity as discussed earlier.
What message do you have for the brothers and sisters in the Britain chapter, not just in the Britain chapter, but in Europe and in the diaspora generally, with regards to developments taking place in Africa?
Well, for those in the Britain chapter of the AAPRP, I would really emphasize to them that they represent an example of that which is absolutely indispensable in our people's victory, an organized African. And that this example, which they represent, they must understand properly the weight which they carry. They have to remain in this organization until they die, or, as we always say, if you leave the AAPRP, be sure to join another, at least hopefully, revolutionary organization, but if not, any other organization. This is clear. So those in the AAPRP must understand properly the weight, the example they represent for the masses of our people. They have to multiply themselves a millionfold, so that every African will become just like them, an organized African, putting the interests of Africa above all else. This must be properly understood by them, and of course the eternal march here must be understood. We know in the first thing we read in our work study circle from Secretary the necessity to ensure that the work of political education is permanent. For brothers and sisters outside of the AAPRP in Britain and Europe in general, number one, you must be sure to be in organizations which at least are giving a permanent base for the African culture. African culture is oppressed everywhere, even in Africa. Thus, we know what it would be like in Europe. Thus, this aspect of struggling hard to make sure that the culture of Africa is affirmed. Secretary says, wherever Africans are, African culture must be affirmed. It doesn't mean that we come into conflict with others. We only affirm our culture. Thus, this affirmation must be very, very strong. And here is a real task for Africans in the diaspora. Of course, they must understand that Africa is put first. And they must understand it precisely. They must know that the job of the Western capitalist media is to always paint Africa as a continent that is incapable of doing anything without Europe. But they must know that Africa developed science before Europe knew what science was. They must know their proper history. It's only when anchored in historical facts of their history that no winds of reactionary garbage will blow them anyway. They must come to know precisely Africa's role in history, what Africa has done. And it's only then that they will know they have a responsibility to ensure that Africa does this again. Consequently, their task must be to be an organization, affirm African culture, and to never allow themselves to think that they are inferior to anyone, and to assure this by putting Africa first. Only when Africa is unified, when she is strong, will Africans be respected and protected anywhere in the world, even in Europe. Thank you. Ready for a show.
Thank you. Thank you, brother.
Yes, so that is Kwame Ture, reminding us of our responsibility here in Britain and in the Western diaspora at large. Our next panelist is Comrade Sister Maxine Davis. Comrade Sister Maxine Davis joined the AAPRP in London, England, in 1986, following a nationwide tour of England's black communities by the great son of Africa, ancestor Kwame Ture, formerly Stokely Carmichael, in 1983. Sister Maxine is one of the pioneers responsible for the founding of the Britain chapter of AAPRP in 1984. Sister Maxine was selected by the Central Committee of the AAPRP to be part of a delegation led by Great Son of Africa and ancestor Kwame Ture for the Worldwide African Anti-Zionist Front Founding Convention from June 12 to 15th in 1991 in Tripoli, Libya. There were global representatives from progressive and revolutionary organizations present, such as the Azanian People's Organization, Nation of Islam, Black Consciousness Movement of Azania, the Pan-African Union of Sierra Leone, the New African People's Organization, and many others. That historic convention in the Socialist People's Libyan Arab Jamahiriya took place 10 years before the US imperialist government and its allies assassinated the Libyan Muammar Gaddafi on October 20th, 2011. Sister Maxine is an African born in England of African Jamaican parentage. She has 2 adult children. Sister Maxine has been a proponent of Pan-Africanism since reading Class Struggle in Africa by Kwame Nkrumah. As a university student, she has been organizing for the AAPRP for over 40 years and remains a committed Pan-Africanist who is passionate about the need to reclaim the esteemed position of equality and respect held for African women within traditional African cultures. Sister Maxine strives to be a living example of African women at the center of the African Revolution. In revolutionary spirit, please welcome Sister and Comrade Maxine Davis.
Unmute. Greetings, Africans, and special greetings to our guests today. Thank you for joining us on this very important occasion of commemorating, recognizing, and most importantly, continuing the work of Kwame Ture. So thank you for having me here. As Comrade Agor said, I joined the AAPRP in 1986. I was born in Nottingham. It was a really important time, the 80s, as a young woman, because we as African people, known then in Britain as colored or West Indian or Black people, particularly those, the young people, we were becoming, really, really agitated with the mistreatment that we were being faced with. Those of my age group will remember the New Cross Massacre in 1981, where 13 young Africans were killed in a house fire. And I believe to this day, no one has been brought to justice for that. We will also remember the uprisings that took place where young people young Africans across the country took to the streets, just to vent our anger. And our sister earlier has talked about, as Africans, we vent our frustration often. The system knows that we are not happy, that we are dissatisfied, and it does everything in its power to co-opt us onto its side. So the 80s were a really, really important time. The Rastafari movement had become, very important within our African communities here in Britain, particularly those from the Caribbean and from Jamaica. Specifically. So we were looking for something else. We were looking for a way to achieve justice for our people. And in 1983, the enigmatic, the charming, the committed, the courageous Kwame Ture landed on our shores. And Kwame Ture could not have done the visit that he did in England, where he traveled, I think, to about 6 or 7 major cities in England, if there had not already been Black, let me call it that for now, political organization in Britain. And it was those organizations already on the ground that organized for Kwame Ture to come over. So that's how I learned of the AAPRP, All African People's Revolutionary Party, as a young woman. When I was introduced, it was said that as a student, I'd already read Class Struggles in Africa. So I was looking for a way that I could play my part to uplift our people. And I'll forever hold the memory of Kwame Ture dear to me, because he provided for me the opportunity to be of service to my people. So thank you very much for having me here today.
Yes, thank you so much, Comrade Sister Maxine, and it's always a pleasure to have you. We have a few questions really to sort of discuss, and really speaking about the legacy of Kwame Ture and what he really means to us, what his work means to us. So I think the first question will be directed at you specifically. Who is Kwame Ture to you, and what do you think his most significant contributions to Pan-Africanism are? It's quite a heavy question, but yeah.
I'd say that, as I said, it was an honor to know Kwame Ture, and to be led by him, but within the context of a mass organization. I would say that Kwame Ture is perhaps the most, or at least one of the greatest political organizations post the independence period of the 1960s. I would say that our dear ancestor, embodied the accumulated history of the struggles of African people. The struggles when the settlers came, the struggles of Nani of the Maroons, the struggles of Marcus Garvey, the struggles of the Rastafarian community, the struggles of Nkrumah, Cabral, you know, our struggles for decolonization and independence. Kwame Ture was an accumulation of all of those struggles, and he himself would say that he was nothing without the masses of the people, without, you know, the historical agency of our people. He was nothing without those who came before him, and he was nothing without the masses of the people taking forward organization. As an individual, Kwame Ture was like an encyclopedia of knowledge. His knowledge of African history was expansive. His relationships with anti-colonial independence organizations and revolutionaries across the world was really wide, and he enjoyed to learn from them. You know, so it was a great honor to have worked with him and to meet him. And I eventually met him in the flesh in 1991 when I attended as part of a delegation to Libya to launch the worldwide African Anti-Zionist Front. And that meeting again is a very, very important historical period in the development of Pan-Africanism. Obviously, there was already an anti-Zionist movement in place, but Kwame Ture, with his political foresight and recognizing the role that Zionist Israel plays in the extraction of the wealth of Africa, called for the organization of an African anti-Zionist front. And he worked tirelessly to get that meeting to be organized in Libya, in the Jamahiriya. And Jamahiriya stands for Directed by the People's Rule. So that was a momentous achievement within the history of Pan-Africanism. So I attended that meeting as a young fledgling organizer, you know, surrounded by those more experienced than me. And, you know, it practically showed me that we as African people can and must organize. And the more we organize, you know, the more we move forward to overthrow our oppression. And I think Sister Mjiba has talked about the nature of our oppression and addressing the fundamental causes of our oppression. So for me, Kwame Ture was many things: a political agitator, an organizer, an ideologue, a mentor. You could sit down with him for hours, ask any question, raise anything. He never made you feel silly or uneducated. He loved to engage all people, not only Africans, in political discussion. But primarily and foremost, Kwame Ture was a political organizer. He built the All African People's Revolutionary Party from scratch in North America, in Canada, in the Caribbean, in Europe, you know, and in other parts of the world. Kwame traveled extensively, he even had contacts with the Dalits of India. Back then, I didn't even know there were Africans in India. He had contacts in South America, all across, you know, across the world. So he's made so many contributions in terms of his living embodiment and his personality. He's a great example of class suicide. Kwame was university educated. He studied philosophy. He had a great mind, but rather than sell himself to the system for the highest wage or the highest price, he used his knowledge and his skills to fight for the people. And that's what we mean when we talk about class suicide. Kwame was clear on the importance of history, and anyone who's listened to his many presentations, you know, will know the pleasure he took in describing the true history of Africa. Kwame was clear on the relationship between theory and practice, and that revolution requires both study and political practice, and that's why we need organization, because organization allows that to happen. I think Kwame contributed ideologically to the development of the definition of Pan-Africanism, the total liberation of Africa under scientific socialism, and to make clear, as he always said, that it's an objective, and an objective is something that can be achieved, that you can set targets for, that you can measure your achievement. So it's not a pie in the sky that we're aiming for, it's a reality that can be achieved. As we know, Kwame was a member, came out of civil rights, Black Power movement, and eventually broke with them because of his concerns around, within the movement at the time, their adherence more to reform than to revolution. And when he broke from them, Kwame took a more revolutionary path. As a young woman joining the AAPRP, it was really important for me to hear Kwame, as he always said, well, let the sisters decide. And he would just sit back. So Kwame saw and lived and embodied the principle, of the equality of the genders and the crucial role of African women in the revolution. And whenever we had discussions within the party, and there were discussions around the role of women, Kwame would say, well, let the sisters decide. That didn't appear to emasculate him in any way. And just to wind up on his contributions, clearly, the AAPRP has had a long history, and Kwame was instrumental in the building of the AAPRP and setting out a clear ideology. And as Kwame was a student of philosophy, he's contributed a lot to the philosophy of the African Revolution.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That meant a lot for us listening. Must have been a very exciting period, I would say, to be around Kwame Ture before he became an ancestor. From his organization and his work from start, we've seen moments where he's organized as a student. So he's been organizing from his youth, and I believe that that's been a great example for us Africans here organizing. I would also, you also mentioned Kwame being an embodiment of great Pan-Africanists, and what came to mind was a few Caribbean names that I got, and also movements that started in the African Caribbean hemisphere. I would want to ask the question: what would Kwame's message to Africans connected through the Caribbean, either those that still live in the Caribbean or here in Britain, what would his message be to them specifically?
Well, as you know, Kwame himself was born in Trinidad, so, is of Trinidadian background. But Kwame saw himself firstly as an African, and I think that's his first message and his enduring message, that all people of African descent are Africans, and we should reclaim our Africanness. I think definitely, he would reiterate that the Caribbean people are an African people. There is no doubt about that. The place where my parents hail from, their motto on independence is out of many, one people, but for me, that motto seeks to obscure, the African basis of the people of Jamaica. And when we look at, as obviously Kwame had done, the historical relationship between the Caribbean and Africa. The Caribbean was a crucial part of the transatlantic slave trade. Africans were brought from Africa and taken brutally wrenched from Africa and forced to slave, to slave in the Caribbean. So, I think Kwame would say to African people here in Britain and in the Caribbean, be proud, sisters and brothers, reclaim, our African identity, continue the resistance of our people of Haiti, continue the resistance of our people of Jamaica, the Maroons, continue the resistance of the Rastafari movement, continue the organization building of Marcus Garvey and Amy Garvey, continue the work of Eric Sylvester Williams, continue the work of CLR James and George Padmore. There are an unlimited number of Africans from the Caribbean who have recognized their African identity and contributed to the Pan-African movement. And I think in particular, our people from the Caribbean, our people living in the Caribbean and our people living in England have contributed to the ideology of, Pan-Africanism. So, I think Kwame would say to our people that, we stand on the shoulders of giants, and we have a responsibility, to contribute to the struggle for the total liberation of Africa and African people wherever we are.
Perfect. Thank you so much, our Comrade Sister Maxine. It's really brilliant to. I'm honestly very excited, if anything, hearing more about Kwame Ture's mind in its sense, and in that spirit, we'll be carrying on with the series of videos that we're watching, which was a few lessons from the 60s. The first one spoke more about organization and its importance, and the next video we have is going to be speaking about class struggle and the highest quality of contribution to the African struggle.
Objective conditions we say are higher, but these objective conditions are higher with also another rising factor, the rising consciousness of the people. The enemy tries everywhere through their mouthpiece, the mass media, to make it appear as if the people's consciousness is not growing, as if it stopped. This is stupidity. The consciousness of the people must forever grow. And some of us become confused, not even understanding how it manifests itself. The other day, having a discussion with an elderly man, he came to say to me, Kwame Ture, you're always up on the college campus with our students. I said, oh yes, I work with them all the time. He said, they are more unconscious. They're so unconscious, they're more unconscious than you were when you were a student. I said, never. He said, yes. I said, no, if they're more unconscious than we were, our work was in vain in the 60s. He said, no, I'm telling you, they're more unconscious than you are. I said, no, they cannot be. He said, if you go up on the college campus and talk to them, they know nothing about Martin Luther King, they know nothing about Malcolm X. I said, that's correct. We don't teach them. But one thing is certain, you cannot put them on the back of a bus. Yes, of course. Of course. Of course. Of course. Conscious he was, he went on the back of the door. Yes. Once history is made, it cannot be unmade. The job of the enemy is to push the people back. Once we broke out of slavery, they did everything possible to push us back into slavery. No, sharecropping, yes, but not slavery. Since the 60s, they've been doing everything else to push us back. But once a man or a woman has learned something, as Sigmund Freud has scientifically demonstrated, it never leaves the mind, even if he thinks he's forgotten it. And once the people have learned something through struggle, never can they forget it. Consequently, the struggles of the 60s you must understood, are already ingrained in the culture of the people, making them more determined to fight, not less. If you come to look properly at America, we say it is more ripe for revolution today than ever before. In the 1960s, and we must show here the rising level of political consciousness. If you want to see the rising level of political consciousness in this country, don't look to the left, look to the right. The right in America today are involved in activities which in the 1960s they considered to be communist. If you would look properly at America today, you will see the conditions are more right. In the 60s, the progressive forces were facing the government and the right wing, which were fighting for status quo. Today, the right wing is not with the government. It's against the government. It's fighting the government. You have the right fighting the government and the left fighting the government. The possibility of change becomes easier, even though the right is not fighting for the same change the left is fighting for. That's understood. But the fact that both of them are fighting against the government makes the possibility of change much easier. And we say if you want to see the rising level of consciousness, look to the white right in this country. Where they disagree with busing, they burn buses. Where they disagree with abortion, they bomb clinics. Thus, they themselves have come to demonstrate the use of violence as a potent force in arriving at a political objective. Everywhere, the conditions for revolution are more ripe today than ever before. And in all of this is, of course, the rising consciousness of the people. The younger generation of Africans in this country, the youth, really believe that everything in America they have a right to. They believe it as a result of the struggles of the 60s. When they come up against a wall, there's going to be a serious explosion in this country. That explosion cannot be a repetition of the 60s. Indeed, history never repeats itself, even though bourgeois scholars never stop harping this song. Nothing repeats itself. A people, however, can repeat their mistakes, yes. And of course, once you repeat a mistake, it is more grave than the first time around. The lessons then must be clear. There is no question, and you must in no way lose faith in the masses of the people. It is they and they alone who make revolution, not their petty bourgeois spokesmen who betray them everywhere. And the conditions of the masses are worse today than they were in the 60s. These masses must have change and will have change by any means necessary. The final point, then. The final point, then. You must not become confused by the American capitalist system, which holds up betrayers of the people's struggle as representatives of the people. In any army in the world, if you desert, you should get shot. It's a law. Certainly you must be shot. And if you volunteer for an army, you should be shot twice. Of course. Of course. You volunteer for the people's army. The people go to fight. They're ready to fight. You say, I'm leaving. What do you mean you're leaving? But if you will look at our struggle since the 60s, you will see nothing but betrayals by the petty bourgeois elements in our society. The African bourgeoisie is the most corrupt bourgeoisie in the world. In Africa, they seek luxury in the midst of mass suffering. There are more Mercedes in Africa than in any other continent in the world. In America, as soon as they arrive at a position based on this blood of the people, they snatch that position and run away from the people. But you must not think that they represent the people. They only represent their opportunistic self, using the people every step of the way. So you must not be confused. It must be clear then, for the 60s, the class struggle in the African Revolution must be more ruthless and uncompromising than in any other revolution. Here then the masses must come without pity and without mercy to trample upon these reactionary pigs who, after the people have gained struggle through their blood, come to hand back the gains on a silver platter to the very enemy the people fought. This will come as a natural consequence. The people themselves are everywhere screaming that it's time for them to deal with these reactionary pigs. Even in America, they say, our leaders must be held accountable. They're only saying here that these people must be accountable to those who made it possible for them to get there. Thus, not only is the revolution inevitable, but it is clarifying itself and it is qualifying itself. For the African masses everywhere, the clairpoised position now for class struggle has become inevitable and irreversible. The petty bourgeoisie everywhere will be running for cover, but the masses will spare them not. Consequently, we who have dedicated our lives to the people's struggle, we who, knowing that the people will always be free, we, understanding that we must make a contribution to qualify our struggle since the 60s, have been dedicating all our energies to only one task: the organization of the masses of our people. The organization of the masses of our people. We are not running for mayor. We're not running for president. No changes can come from the top down. We're not stupid. Changes can only come from the bottom up. The masses and the masses alone can make them. If you want to learn something from the 60s, the lesson is simple. organize the masses of the people. Thank you.
Yes, so as Kwame Ture explains the importance of class struggle and organizing a mass movement, and also enforcing the fact that it's not through these petty elections here that would bring about our freedom. I would let Comrade Brother Adebayo carry on with the facilitation for the next part of our webinar today.
Thank you, comrades. We thanks everyone for being part of this amazing webinar. And we thank you on the Saturday that you could be doing many things here with us. We're going to bring in our next panelist, which is Mr. Imani Umoja. Brother Imani is a member of the Central Committee and the National Secretary of the PAIGC, the Great Party of Titi Nasila and Amilcar Cabral. And on the PAIGC, Brother Imani serves in the political and ideological education, including as the director of the PAIGC's Amilcar Cabral Political Ideological Training School. Brother Imani is also a member of the Scientific Council of the Amilcar Cabral Institute, and he has long been an active member in the grassroots of political organizing within the autonomous sector of Guinea-Bissau. In addition to that, Brother Imani serves on the Central Committee of the All African People's Revolutionary Party, the AAPRP, where he contributes to political education and Pan-African organizing. Mr. Imani also his work includes leadership roles within the Amilcar Cabral African Youth. This is the youth wing of the PAIGC JAC, as well as the West African People's Organization, WAPO, and finally, the Black Alliance for Peace, US out of Africa Network. You can see that our comrade Imani is giving us an example of what it means to be integrating into multiple Pan-African organizations, as Kwame Nkrumah taught us to build the AACPC. Mr. Imani was born in Missouri, in the United States, and Mr. Imani studied political science, public education, biochemistry, and law in the United States. He earned Juris Doctor degree from Southern University Law Center, and during his school years, he served in several national leadership positions, including the president of the National Organization of Black Universities and College Students, NOBUCS, and he represented student government across HBCUs in America. Since relocating to Guinea-Bissau in 1998, Brother Imani has dedicated his work to Pan-African political education and grassroots organizing, youth movement, and sustainable development initiatives grounded in the revolutionary vision of Amilcar Cabral, Titi Nasila, and the African Liberation Movement. It is a revolutionary honor for us to welcome Comrade Imani. Comrade Imani, welcome. We have some few questions for you, but before we start, is there anything you want to say or should we start into the questions?
Yeah, the first thing I want to say is thank you. We want to thank you for your gratitude. The worst crime in the world is to be ungrateful. So when you have a faithful child of the land, like Kwame Ture, who remain faithful to our people, and you yourselves are making sure that on the eve of the 85th anniversary of the day that he was born, that you project him to the world to keep him alive, we thank you. Secondly, we apologize for the setting that we're in right now. Under normal circumstances, we will be in the PAIGC national headquarters. But as we talk to you right now, we cannot get in there temporarily because it's being occupied by armed neo-colonial forces. But the positive side of it is that this humble place that we're in right now, this is where Kwame stayed when he came here 43 years ago, 43 years ago, 1993. So we thank you.
Thank you, comrade. It's a revolutionary honor to have you. We'll get into the questions. In the clip we played earlier, Kwame Ture spoke about the importance of collective consciousness before there can be progress in any society. And it would be great if you could tell us a bit about the connection between level of consciousness of our people and the progress that we currently have in Eritrea, in Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, and other areas in Africa where we can say we are recording progresses. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. if you look at the areas that you mentioned, as well as other areas, like for example, if you look at East Africa, you see that we have Ethiopia, which is the neighbor to Eritrea. It was never colonized like Eritrea because of the culture of our people. Now we can give the example of Tetu Betu, a strong African woman who was the empress, who said she would not accept any compromises with the enemy and mobilized, for the most part, women. Of course, men followed behind, and they defeated the Italian invasions. But of course, she did that because of the culture that already existed. She built upon it. And as a result of that, those who came afterwards, because that was in 1897, those who came after, they remember that. So that becomes a part of our culture. You mentioned Burkina Faso, where the great Sankara continued the culture. He embraced it, he stayed faithful to it. It existed because every time anybody would invade our lands, there was resistance because of our culture. Now, he was overthrown by the enemies, by neo-colonial agents, people like Blaise Compaoré. But the people rose up and overthrew Blaise Compaoré. And that's the result of what we have right now. We have a military leadership, but we know it would be transformed into a party because parties existed before, just like in the neighboring countries of Niger, where you had the Swaba party led by Bakary Djibo, who this party embodied the culture of our people and overthrew, or at least attempted to overthrow French colonialists, at least got to the point of political independence. But unfortunately, because of betrayal of the riding petty bourgeois opportunists, he was overthrown temporarily. And the Swaba party was seriously attacked. But if you see now that there's military leadership, it's because of the consciousness that exists in all the segments of our people. And we're sure here that it will also transform into a party led by the people. Or the neighbor country of Mali, which used to be led by the USRDA, led by that great son of Africa, Modibo Keita, who who embraced the culture of our people. They organized a party, and then became united with Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, which was also led by great parties. The Convention People's Party of Ghana is a manifestation of our people's culture there. The PDG, the Democratic Party of Guinea, a manifestation of our people in Guinea-Conakry. We continue the works of those great ancestors. You know, if we say the names like Mo.rights, we'll leave out the other names like Afa Yaya Jallo, etc. But they continue this culture. So that culture now, that's where our conscience comes, we say, from theory and practice. That's what we call culture. It's like Gabriel says, it's like the fruit of our history. It's like if you look at a tree, a mango tree, it produces the mango fruit. Well, that tree is like our history, that mango fruit is like our culture. But inside of the mango fruit, you have a seed. That's like our ideology. When that seed falls to the ground, it becomes nurtured, it transforms, it gives birth to another tree. Our ideology, coming from our culture, embraced upon our people, it produces more culture. So when you have liberation movements, revolutionary parties, they are the politically organized manifestation of our people's culture. You can't defeat it. We say that if you drop a bomb on Guinea-Bissau, hypothetically speaking, and you kill all the people in Guinea-Bissau, the PAIGC will still survive because that culture is there. We have online right now different comrades who are in the PAIGC. Where you at right now? They're in England. You work along with them. You too are PAIGC. But even if they could biologically kill all the Guineans or the descendants of Guinea throughout the world, the PAIGC will still continue because that culture is embodied by African people and all freedom-loving people throughout the world. So this consciousness of the masses of our people is what produced Kwame Ture. It's this culture that produced us. It's this culture that produced these revolutionary parties. So the collective understanding and real honest revolutionaries understand this, which is what they do, what Kwame said all the time, be among the people. It's not just Kwame said that, Mao Zedong said that also, Fidel, you gotta be among the people, because we are the people. You learn from the people. It's the people that are almighty. It's the people that are supreme reference, as Sekou Toure said all the time. And so from learning from our people, our culture grows. And the more we learn, we put into practice, we get a higher levels of theory from that. And we take those higher levels of theory to put into more qualified practice. But it has to be based with the mass of people, not just in talk, but in practice. So we have no doubt that the mass of our people's conscience increasing. Kwame talked about the short period from 1945 to 1960. But now we're 80 years later, isn't it? Yeah, we're 80 years after the 5th Pan-Africanist Congress that took place where you all at in England. But that mass organizing that our people remain faithful to, and Kwame Nkrumah, his people with the CPP, Sekou Toure, his people with the PDG, Amir Kakabral, the decision to say, let's organize for the mass. This is our gift to the world, huh? It's Africa. It gave to the Revolutionary War the gift of having the mass party. Unfortunately, still now, where you all are living, in most parts of Europe, you still just have these vanguard parties or elite parties. They're not mass parties. But here, it's a pattern now. You have to have the mass party, which is why even us here in Guinea-Bissau, who are presently victimized by another coup, we have, none of us have any doubt we're going to overcome because we're the mass of our people. The mass of our people, not just those you see walking down the street. They got uniforms on, army uniforms, police uniforms. They work in NGOs. They work in different organizations. They're everywhere. They drive cars. They sweep the streets. They're everywhere. And so you can't defeat them. It's happened before. We've been overthrown by coups. We got back up again. The revolutionaries say it's not how many times you fall, it's how many times you get back up. As long as it's based upon the mass of our people.
Right on. Thank you, comrade, for speaking on the connection between consciousness of our people, our culture, and where we are going next. It's interesting you mentioned that Kwame Ture, someone that lived among the people and he lived a simple life. And in the video, he talked about the importance of class struggle in the African Revolution. I guess for our members and our audiences who might not be so familiar with the term class consciousness, class struggle, can you speak a bit about what it means, and can you speak a bit about why it is necessary for the African Revolution and for us to progress in the 21st century?
Yeah, this is fundamental. The word class is not like a class in the school. No, it's a group of people who have the same interests. More particularly, we talk about the economic interests and consequently the political, social interests. For example, during chattel slavery, the slave masters represent a class of oppressors. They have the same interests. But those who are enslaved, whose labor is exploited, whose human rights are just totally violated, are in another class. So we too have the same interests. But unfortunately, there was confusion among some. Some people are Africans who are enslaved, but they might live in the same house as the class of the slave master and think that they belong to the class of the slave master. So they will fight for the interests of the slave master against the masses of Africans who are enslaved. But as you know, the overwhelming majority of the Africans who are enslaved are in the field. So they know that the slave master is the enemy. Well, translating that to capitalists, which is another form of slavery, unfortunately, we still have some who are capitalist slaves who, because maybe they have a higher position than the other slave, that's to say they're in the house with the capitalist slave master, they identify with the class of the capitalists. So they think that they're the middle class, or they think that they're not among the mass of the people. So they identify with the interests of the capitalist slave master. But you have those who are in the class of the people. Some might put on a uniform in a capitalist society, like for example, an army uniform or a police uniform, and protect the ruling class against the mass of the people. So they think the mass of the people are the enemies, and that they are the part of the class of the capitalists. It's because of the confusion. So it's very important that we have consciousness of which class we belong to. This can, the overwhelming majority of our people don't have that confusion, but we still have quite a few to do. In order to have the consciousness of it, we have to make sure we have education. So those of you who have the consciousness that you're in the class of the oppressed, and the solution is to overturn the class of the oppressor, you must be very patient with our people to help to point out to them and be happy. Don't be mad when you meet up with a confused sister or brother. Be happy that you met them so you can help to bring them to the level of understanding of which class they belong to.
All right. Thank you, comrade, for sharing some knowledge on the importance of class and class consciousness for us to move in the 21st century. Finally, we were going to pick back on the clip that we watched earlier, and where Kwame Ture was highlighting some of the lessons of the movement from the 60s. Obviously, since then, there's been other movements where we could learn from as well to guide, our struggle towards permanent victory. We're talking about movements such as, the temporary defeat of, the socialist camp, which of course, affected the African Revolution as well, because everything is connected to everything. Other movements such as, Libya of 2011, which unfortunately the enemy, behave like an animal that they are. And the NSAS movement in Nigeria in 2020, and of course the current fight in Guinea-Bissau. We wanted you to speak a bit about like the connection between these movements in our movement, and how does the strategy of AAPRP, address these lessons and make sure that the victory that we're fighting for is going to be permanent and secure in the future. Thank you.
Okay, this is exactly where the concept of an all-African People's Revolutionary Party emerged from. Before Kwame Nkrumah even wrote the manuscript appealing for the most revolutionary parties that are struggling for state power to come together with the most revolutionary parties struggling to build socialism in the countries that they have, that they are in ruling or that's in control of, those liberated countries. For example, at the time that Nkrumah wrote the manuscript of the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, he was the president of Ghana, and the Convention People's Party was the ruling government. Ahmed Sekou Toure was the president of the People's Revolutionary Republic of Guinea and its party, the Mass Revolutionary Democratic Party of Guinea. The PAIGC was not in state power. It was struggling to get power, just like SWAPO was doing struggling to get state power, just like ZANU was struggling to get state power, just like the Eritrean People's Liberation Forces were struggling to get power. So Nkrumah says we must bring this together. But that's not to say that it wasn't happening before that. As it now became crystal clear that the coordinate we had been done has to be permanent. So a loss in one area can be made up by gains in another area. So the places that you mentioned, the Jamahiriya Libya, okay, it didn't have a revolutionary party, but the Jamahiriya structure, what they had, what they call people's congresses at the local level, the people's congress at the intermediate structure like the regions, etc. It's almost like a party state. But the fact that it wasn't a party, I think is one of the things we should learn from. Because in the other areas that I just mentioned to you, where you had a political party that was in power, whenever a loss would occur, the party would come back again. In some cases, those parties are still not back in state power, like in Ghana with the CPP or in Guinea with the PDG, but those revolutionary forces are there in different names. The other areas that you mentioned, like Nigeria, you mentioned about the struggles against SARS in 2000, it was around 2000. But I was just looking at the news from Nigeria just the other day, and I saw protests going on in Lagos, in Abuja, and other parts. So that same spirit is there. But it's still, we don't have that party, a mass revolutionary party for Nigeria, but I know it's coming because you have different forces there, like the Milka Cabral the Milka Cabral ideological school. You got the Joint Action Forces. They come together with the different academic association of professors. In other areas you mentioned, like for example, in the socialist camp of the former Soviet Union or Eastern Europe, there too we've been following movements there. They just inaugurated what they call a socialist intern in Moscow. Let's really bring together those revolutionary forces. Because even though the parties lost state power, and even though a lot of the leadership was killed or imprisoned, some capitulated, that consciousness is still there. And that's the most important thing, that culture is still there. So are people now becoming more conscious of what just happened and what happened before? Now they're able to make more of a comparison and say, things were really much better when the Communist Party controlled the 15 republics called the Soviet Union, the Soviet Socialist Republics. In Eastern Europe, they see that how miserable they're living in places like the former Yugoslavia, which is now Croatia or Serbia, and they see that now that it was better during that time. So let's go back to there. Where on the other hand, if you look at places like Cuba, where the Communist Party of Cuba has been attacked repeatedly, and is seriously attacked right now because the party continued the revolution, the people's consciousness is able to use this party to make sure that they make up for the downfalls. Here in Guinea-Bissau too, the PAIGC has been kicked out of power in 1980, 1999. Again, we came back, they kicked us out again. We came back in 2004. They kicked us out in 2005. We came back in 2008 even stronger. They kicked us out again in 2012. We came back strong in 2014. Now they just kicked us out again recently. And I'm telling you, it's become stronger and stronger and stronger. So the lessons that we should learn from there is the necessity of the party. The party is the guarantee of the revolution. But the party must have the most conscious, faithful children of the land leading the party. And it must carry out creatively constant political education, not just through speeches or writings or seminars like this, but I see somebody doing a drawing of Kwame Ture, people doing songs, revolutionary songs, the rap songs with the revolutionary lyrics, the artisanats, the plays. Use the social media like you are doing to make sure it gets to the people. So I think the key there again is it's the party. You got to have the people organized, and then now with the party, coordinate with the other parties in the world, the other liberation movements in the world, not just with African parties, but the socialist parties in the world and the progressive parties in the world.
Thank you, comrades, for the humble contributions. We appreciate you taking time to join us from Guinea-Bissau, the homeland of Titina Sila and Amika Cabral. We are going to open the floor now for people to bring in questions for our panelists, and also if anyone also would like to speak a bit about how Kwame Ture has influenced their life and motivated them to continue to work for the African Revolution. We are going to bring back Comrade Maxine, and it's also an honor for us to have amongst us some Central Committee members of the AAPRP. We have Dr. John Trimble, we have Brother Sobukwe. So, comrades, if there's any of the questions that you'd like to take on, please feel free to raise your hands as well.
We have Sister and Comrade Sarah Zai.
Greetings, comrade sister, and other people that I might not be seeing at this moment. So yeah, please use the button to raise your hands, comrades, if you would like to say anything. The floor is open. I will take questions, we will take contributions or comments on how Kwame Ture has been a positive force in our lives, in making us to be responsible for the African Revolution. Thank you, comrades. Dr. John Trimble, please go ahead.
I'd like to start by thanking the Britain chapter for organizing this. This is a very important activity, and you're doing a great job. I want to emphasize the point that Kwame raised in his presentation about the campus. He talked about how people, and this was a speech in the 80s where they were saying that somehow the campus wasn't like it was in the 60s. And he pointed out that people have gained a higher level of consciousness. The campus is even riper today. I know my comrade Imani was recruited on the campus, committed class suicide, and went to Guinea-Bissau. I was recruited on the campus, even though I wasn't a student, and made an effort to go back to the campus to organize, because this is the space most effective today in terms of us organizing a revolutionary intelligentsia. That's my point. Thank you.
Thank you, comrades. And yes, comrades, please, we still have some minutes to take in questions and comments and contributions. Again, you can unmute or you can use the button to raise your hands, and we would, the floor is yours. This is an opportunity for us to have a conversation with lifetime organizers. These are people, with experience of minimum 20 years, sometimes even 50 years and above. And the enemy would not give us the platform, so this is the platform for us. Ogo Osamo, please unmute. And
Comrade Adiabo, excuse me. I see we have some comrades of the PAIGC online. So can we let them know that they want to ask a question in Creole? We can translate. So please, if you want. About escutando, camaradas de Guinea-Bissau, se você tem uma questão, você pode fazer questão em Creole, não tem toda Rose. Tem para ser certíssimo questão também. Thank you.
Thank you. Ogo, please go ahead. Ogo Osamo, if you're speaking, we cannot hear you yet. Please unmute and Okay. If there is no questions or contributions or comments at this point, we're going to move on. And if we have more time, we can always come back to them. Thank you, comrades. By the way, in the chat, we have some useful links that our comrades have sent. If you are not in any organization yet, please consider joining the AAPRP. If you are in a revolutionary organization, please consider bringing together our organizations so that we can further build what Nkrumah said, the All African Coordination Council for ACPC. We're going to move on with the program now. Sorry, gone.
Sorry, it's Ogo.
Oh,
Apologies. I lost my mute control, so I couldn't respond to you calling me.
no problem.
Yes, I want to thank the Britain chapter for organizing this event. It's been incredibly refreshing, and it's also great to be able to see all the brothers from years back, Sister Sarudzai, as well as in terms of our sister, Brother Imani, Umoja, Brother Trimble, a whole lot of you. I used to be a member of the AAPRP and still looking to come back into the chapter. Kwame Ture did a great job in terms of bringing forward the AAPRP into Britain. I was a student when I was recruited, or I became member of the AAPRP, and struggled for many, many years with Sister Maxine, Brother Asari. It's great, and let the struggle continue. There's a huge amount yet for us to achieve. Thanks, Brother John Trimble, for the point about campus, working on campus and recruiting students. It is a crucial strategy, and to the best of our ability, we must continue to do so, to recruit from amongst our students. The masses will come, but it will come through continued struggle, because the AAPRP has never really been a students' party alone, even though, in terms of the majority, even though the strategy is to recruit from amongst students. Thank you, brothers and sisters, and may the struggle continue. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade. Brother Imani, anything you want to comment on our brother's contribution? We remember in ALD you mentioned that people that you've seen people that were in organization before, and you encourage people to come back. You spoke about the importance of organizing an organization. If there's anything you want to add to that, and Sister Maxine as well, you're in the same chapter as Brother Ogo, please.
Yeah, I want to say revolutionary greetings to Brother Kwame Ogo. I remember in 1991, him and Sister Maxine and others took us to some campuses in Birmingham, Leicester, Sheffield, Manchester, and different parts of London. Organized on a college campus is not a principle, it's a strategy. It's actually a tactic to implement a strategy. The strategy is for the most revolutionary intelligentsia to help to organize with the most revolutionary workers and the peasants or the farmers. Now, if you look for the most revolutionary intelligentsia, it's not isolated to the college campus, but that's where most of them are. That's where the majority of them are. The teachers, the students. And on the college campus, you have access, particularly in places like London or Manchester or New York or Paris and other urban areas, particularly in the metropoles. But even here in Africa, if you go to Dakar, you'll find Africans born in about 33 different countries studying the University of Dakar in Senegal. So you'll have a nice Pan-African mix, as well as a nice international mix. If you go to the schools like in London or New York or Toronto, Canada, you also have access to resources you can use, to libraries, to places to have meetings, copy machines, computers, and people know how to use these computers. So that's the biggest advantage of organizing on the college campus. If you look at all of the different revolutionary parties like the PAIGC, Amilcar Cabral, they were students in Lisbon. They met together, Agostinho Neto, Marcelino dos Santos of Mozambique. They're the ones who met together and started their little work study group like we do in the AAPRP. And from there, they went back to their respective countries and organized mass revolutionary parties. and liberated those territories. So anybody who looks at that, and I think they cannot deny that fact. Sometimes I think it's a matter of being shy too. Some people don't know how to get to the college campus. They say, if I go there, I see these students and I don't know. No, go to the programs. We get to the programs, you meet them. And when you meet them, just be a human being with them and to develop relationships. Before you know it, they'll want to keep you there most of the time. You teach class, you can participate in activities, etc. Just bond with them.
Right,
This is our box.
Thank you, comrade, for speaking on the importance of organizing on campus and the strategic importance of it. We must mention that ourselves and some other comrades here, we got involved on campus. Sister Tandy, that is making the portrait of Kwame Nkrumah, is from Brunel campus, and today we organize and we bring the AAPRP to campus. Sister Maxine, please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I think nothing in the world is perfect, and no political organization is perfect. But I think sometimes we use the weaknesses of our organizations as a reason not to join them. It's taken me, I guess, a number of decades, to really understand that the process of revolution, just like the process of evolution, is decades long. The situation that we find ourselves in as a people didn't occur immediately. The enslavers, they saw an opportunity, and then they worked, towards getting the upper hand, and they continue to work at that. So I think because change is a process, what we have the most control over is what we do with our own lives. Now, I've spent almost 40 years, working as a paid worker, let's call it a wage slave, in a bourgeois organization. And that's what many of us do. If we're lower paid workers, we aspire to be higher paid workers. And then this becomes, our life, and it determines our life. And I think if we each reflect, if we can give our life's energy to the oppressor, then why can't we give all of our lives, or some portion of our lives, to our own political organizations that are looking to emancipate, to organize and emancipate our people. So I think the struggle starts with self. It's not about critiquing external reality. I think it's about reflection, and examining our own consciousness and our own morality, and making the decision to commit and to learn as we go along, to commit to the struggle for the liberation of our people. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Maxine, for the amazing contribution. Brother Sobukwe, you have your hands up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I always remember one of the things that Kwame Ture emphasized, and one of those things is that struggle is eternal. And I think he said it tonight in one of the speeches. And I think if we think about struggle as it being eternal, that there is, there's not an end point. We're struggling to continue processes that was started before us and will continue after us. And our contributions will even live longer than we will. And our people's struggle will continue beyond us. I remember, when we were commemorating Kwame Ture's 80th anniversary, we said that, Kwame Ture is still organizing. And this program is a testament to that. He lived only 56 years, but now he continues to motivate us, continues to organize us, continues to give us growth in our ideological understanding of revolutionary processes. So I think that is what, would perhaps Maxine was reflecting on. Revolution is a lifetime commitment. That's what it means to develop to be a cadre of the revolution. And we understand that, again, that we come from our people's struggle, and our people's struggle will continue regardless of if we're here or not. But what it will do, it will judge what contributions that each and every one of us made to it. And I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, comrades, for speaking on the eternal organizing of Kwame Ture. We find this very substantial for the African Revolution, especially in today's era where there's a lot of unscientific stance on Pan-Africanism, and some people, if you ask them what is Pan-Africanism, they might give you what they've seen on TikTok. We found Kwame Ture's lectures and Kwame Ture's eternal organizing materials to guide us, even though he's not here physically. We're going to move on with the next agenda. We're going to hear some voice from AAPRP cadre who resides and work and organize in Burkina Faso, the homeland of Thomas Sankara. And yes, thank you, comrades, for being part of the program.
Revolutionary greetings, comrades. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm really excited. I jump at every opportunity that there is to honor the great ancestor Kwame Ture. He deserves not just the praises and the flowers, but real serious study, because Kwame Ture is somebody who I believe was so advanced. As African people around the world, we're still in a process of trying to catch up to his ideas and to catch up to his message. So if you already know Kwame Ture and about his life and legacy, and I assume that a lot of people who are going to be listening to this webinar probably already are familiar with him, please make sure that you are showing, exposing other Africans to Kwame Ture's life and legacy. Now, I just want to say a few words about the reception, the legacy, the heritage of Kwame Ture on the African continent specifically. I've had the tremendous privilege of going to experience various parts of the African continent and specifically engaging in revolutionary struggle with Pan-African organizers on the ground in various places in Africa back home. And I really want to talk about some of what I've seen in terms of how his legacy is received on the continent. And there's differences in different areas that I just want to highlight, because some places show us, the extent of his contribution and how important, Kwame Ture is as a force, as a figure, and as a thinker and theorist who unifies African people. And there's also work to be done. So I'll talk about first some of what I've seen. Some of the most incredible one of the most incredible realizations I've had traveling around Africa is if you go to different African countries, especially English-speaking African countries, and you meet with revolutionary Pan-African organizers. This was my experience in Kenya. Recently, I was in Nigeria. A couple months ago, I was there, and I met with comrades who deeply admired Kwame Ture. I'll never forget the memory of being in a bus traveling around central Kenya with comrades from various Pan-African organizations. There were comrades from the Communist Party of Kenya, Marxists. There were comrades from the Revolutionary Socialist League of Kenya, Mapinduzi, other revolutionary Pan-African socialist organizations in Kenya. Mwamko was one of the main organizers, or actually was the main organizer of this Pan-African convergence. So we're in this bus in central Kenya, and we're listening to music, we're listening to like a lot of Pan-African reggae songs, everything. And then one of the comrades gets up and he's like, you know what, I need to show you guys something. I need to put you onto something. And he puts on a Kwame Ture video. And, we're driving around Kenya and we're actually listening to this Kwame Ture speech. And that's something that really hits me hard because it exposed me to the breadth, the extent of Kwame Ture's legacy. The fact that I was talking to Africans in Kenya during that period, and they were telling me, I became a Pan-African organizer because I listened to a lot of Kwame Ture's speeches and I knew I had to get involved. And so you can see the extent of Kwame Ture's reach. I mean, whether you are on Turtle Island, whether you are in the Caribbean, whether you are in West Africa, or whether you are in East Africa and Kenya, you feel Kwame Ture's legacy. Another example I want to give you about that is recently I did some interviews with revolutionary Pan-African organizers in Nigeria. And there was a comrade I spoke to. He's actually now a member of the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, Comrade Matthew. And he talks about in this video how Kwame Ture was one of his references. And, this is even something that pushed him to join, the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. So this is something that pushed him towards organizing. And so to see like Kenya and Nigeria are two countries that are very far apart, but, either place that I go, I can meet people who have been touched by Kwame Ture's life and legacy. Now, earlier I did say we have more work to be done and that there are gaps here. And I want to give you an example of that. Even though Kwame Ture lived in Guinea-Conakry for a significant portion of his life, he spent decades in Guinea. Unfortunately, because of both certain language barriers regarding like his speeches that he was given that are publicized on YouTube, but also there may possibly be contributions that he made in French that unfortunately are not accessible to the public because, he was in Conakry, he was able to, start developing certain materials in French. Potentially, those are not available right now. So there is a language gap in terms of Kwame Ture's heritage. Now, Kwame Ture's sons, Alpha Yaya and Bokar, are doing good work in terms of educating French-speaking Africans about Kwame Ture's life and legacy. At the Thomas Sankara Center, this is one of the things that we've been trying to do more and more and pushing towards, but there really is a gap. And this is something that we really need to address. Like, we need to start figuring out how can we make sure that across different languages that African people speak, people have access to this really, really important theoretical knowledge. We need to have, for example, Stokely Speaks, which is I want to reference that one because this is a primary source. It's a primary source material. It's a collection of his speeches. Very straightforward, they're not daunting. They're just like really good information for somebody who's curious about Pan-Africanism, wants to learn about what Pan-Africanism is. We need to find the ways to make sure we have these resources available in French. So I'm putting out the call. I'm putting it out, broadly. I've talked about this in different spaces. Hopefully maybe somebody who has some connection can hear that and, we can figure out how do we get this as a material translated into French. We need to be doing more work to get his videos out, in French, and just French. I'm sure like other languages too, perhaps in like Spanish, Portuguese, etc. I'm just speaking to like what I've experienced, living in Burkina Faso and Niger, where up until relatively recently in Pan-African spaces, Kwame Ture was completely unknown. I mean, I'm sure maybe decades ago when he was alive and active, he was well known, but there has been a gap because of this language barrier that we need to address, we need to solve. So I emphasize that because I see how in the English-speaking countries in Africa, he is somebody who even today in 2026 is bringing new young people into the movement for the first time, because they're exposed to him, because they see his clips on social media, they listen to his speeches on YouTube, they're able to engage with the transcripted speeches that he has compiled in Stokely Speaks. Like, these are all resources that English-speaking Africans from Kenya to Nigeria and elsewhere are holding on to and diffusing and like using to educate themselves. And so we just need to make sure that it becomes more and more and more accessible to African people around the world. So I say this because I, again, so deeply admire the life and legacy of Kwame Ture. I wouldn't be, anywhere near my level of political consciousness and understanding if it had not been for Kwame Ture. I really think he's one of our greatest ancestors. He's just somebody who's so brilliant, so unapologetic. He understood that we need to fight for the total liberation and unification of Africa under scientific socialism. And that until Africa is free, no African anywhere will ever be free or respected. And, this is something that there's a lot of struggle right now. It's 2026, there's a lot. There's an onslaught of information all over social media. So many people are getting their information, through social media, and then there's a huge Pan-African backlash in this moment. We're seeing, not just like in many places around the world, more divisiveness, more confusion. And can you imagine if the people in the Alliance of Sahel States were armed with the ideas of Kwame Ture in their head? I mean, we're working towards this. It's something we need to continue to advance. We at the Thomas Sankara Center, we've translated like snippets of his speeches, but we need to accelerate that work. And again, we need to figure out how we can get Slowly Speaks available in French. Imagine if these conscious Africans were armed with that knowledge. So I really want to encourage people, if you have already been exposed to Kwame Ture and his ideas, that's great, but you have to make sure that you're putting others onto these ideas. You need to make sure that you're diffusing this information so it doesn't just stay with you, because there are a lot of people, most Africans, the vast majority of Africans on this planet have not been exposed to Kwame Ture. Do not have any concept of his ideas, do not know what he was fighting for. That's like the 95+% of African people on this earth. So please, each one teach one. If you already know, let others know. It's great to have this webinar, but this webinar can't just be for people who already know and love him. We need to be putting more and more Africans on. So thank you. Thank you for having me. And I'm happy to send my contribution and to speak to you about Kwame Ture. Again, I can't even express how much I admire this ancestor. One of our most brilliant ancestors, one of the greatest of all time. And just let him continue to inspire all of our lives and legacies. And let us continue to think, what can we do to not just honor Kwame Ture, but to free Africa, to liberate and unify Africa, because that's the only way to honor him and also all of these revolutionary ancestors that we have as African people in our lineage. Forward ever.
Thank you so much. That was a contribution from Burkina Faso, the homeland of Thomas Sankara, excuse me. We are going to come to the closing remarks now. We do have an audio which I'll bring on in a minute, and this is a mix from one of our cultural workers, which is a mix of Kwame Ture's, what in our opinion, one of his most his most substantial speech, where he was speaking on how to qualify the struggle. We see that the enemy tries a lot to make sure that we make the same mistake and that we don't learn from the quality lessons that we have already. But Kwame Ture said that we want to qualify our struggle. We understand that for us to move forward, we have to change some things. We must put all of our effort and all of our focus in organizing the masses of our people. We are not running for mayor. We are not running for president. We are not running charity. We know that we want a total change today, we want a total change yesterday, we want a total change tomorrow, and only the masses of the people can bring about change, and not not an individual or anyone. Thank you, Colin.
The petty bourgeoisie everywhere will be running for cover, but the masses will spare them not. Consequently, we who have dedicated our lives to the people's struggle, we who knowing that the people will always be free, we are understanding that we must make a contribution to qualify our struggle since the 60s, have been dedicating all our energies to only one task: the organization of the masses of our people. The organization of the masses of our people. We are not running for mayor, we're not running for president. No changes can come from the top down, we're not stupid. Changes can only come from the bottom up. The masses and the masses alone can make them. If you want to learn something from the 60s, the lesson is simple: organized masses of the people.
Kwame Ture.
Thank you, comrades. We are going to come to a close with some announcements. We must mention first that the audio that Brother Gabriel has produced for us, we will release it sometime in the coming week, so we can all be inspired from this audio and every other cultural asset that came out of this webinar. We will release it. So stay tuned on our social media, stay tuned on our streaming platforms. If you want to connect with the Britain chapter, we are on social media, AAPRP_Britain, the main party as well, AAPRP International. If you are not in an organization, please reach out to us in any of our platform or through the links that we've sent to join the AAPRP, and we will make some announcements. In end of July, we have Pan-African Women's Day, which is going to be another inspiring webinar, and we also have across the Pan-African world and across the international space where AAPRP organized, we will have in-person event for the Pan-African Women's Day, which we usually commemorate end of July and in August as well. This is an important day in our calendar, so please stay tuned for Pan-African Women's Day. In London and in Britain, in the UK, we are going to organize Pan-African Women's Day for the 15th of August. We will be doing this working with the National Union of Eritrean Women. We'll be working with the Union of the Sahrawi Women. We'll be working with the women of the PAIGC. It's an honor to have amongst us some of the coordinators of the UDEMO of PAIGC. We've seen them in the chat. We give thanks, we give honor to them. And yes, please stay tuned on our social media. And reach out. Feel free to reach out if you would like to, get involved. We give thanks. We give appreciation to Central Events. We give appreciation to all the CC members that have supported us. We give thanks to our cultural workers. We give thanks to Pan-African Society and Sister Tandy from Pan-Af. We give thanks to everyone, and the meeting is over now, but we'll put the slideshow in case you guys still want to hang around, but feel free to leave if you want to. In the meantime, we'll put this on. Thank you, comrades. Ready for evolution.
Everywhere will be running for cover, but the masses.
Thank you, comrade.
Consequently, we have dedicated our lives to the people's struggle. Who, knowing that the people will always be free, we, understanding that we must make a contribution to qualify our struggle since the 60s, have been dedicating all our energies to the organization of the masses of our people. The organization of the masses of our people. We are not running for president. No changes can come from the top down. Changes can only come from the masses and the masses alone can make them. If you want to learn something from the 60s, the lesson is simple. Organize the masses of the people.
Prepara la revolução. Hasta la victoria sempre. Venceremos. Viva Pan-Africanism!
Viva!
Forward to
Viva
unify Africa!
Viva PATPA!
Conscientize the youth!
Glory eternal Kwame Ture!
Forward ever! Backward never!
Kwame Ture lives forever and ever!
Organized organize, organize.
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 Like never before.
Ready for revolution.
Ready for revolution. Prêt pour la révolution. Pronto pour révolution. Liste pour la révolution.
Please contact us if you'd like to know more about the All African People's Revolutionary Party and join our organizing work in
Prêt pour la
Thank
révolution. Kwame Ture. Biological and ideological son of Kwame Ture.
The petty bourgeoisie everywhere will be running for cover, but the masses will spare them not. Consequently, we who have dedicated our lives to the people's struggle, we who, knowing that the people will always be free, we, understanding that we must make a contribution to qualify our struggle since the 60s, have been dedicating all our energies to only one task, the organization of the masses of our people. The organization of the masses of our people. We are not running for mayor, we're not running for president. No changes can come from the top down. We're not stupid. Changes can only come from the bottom up. The masses and the masses alone can make them. If you want to learn something from the 60s, the lesson is simple. Organize the masses of the people.
Organize the masses of our almighty people.
Comrade Afaya, please feel free to unmute, introduce yourself, and the floor is yours.
Alpha has his hand up. He wants to say something.
Yes, we're asking him to speak. We are asking him to speak now. Thank you.
He speaks French only? Does he speak English?
No, it's like his father. He speaks French, English, Fula, Mandinka, Susu.
Okay, well, he can talk.
Hello.
He's off of me. We're ready to hear you what you got to say.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Pan-African greetings, everyone. First and foremost,
greetings.
I'm Kwame Ture, second son of Kwame Ture, but I prefer to say ideological son. And,
yes.
I'm a French speaker, so sorry for my English. I'm working to improve my English. I just want to say thank you for everything you are doing for Kwame Ture's legacy. You know, Kwame Ture is not just a historical figure to us, to me, to us. He is a daily, source of inspiration. His life taught to us that Pan-Africanism is not an idea to admire from a distance. It is the responsibility to live. His courage, discipline, and unwavering commitment to African liberation continue to shape our journey. For my generation, Kwame Ture remains a call to action. He reminds young African and the African diaspora that our future depends on our unity, our political consciousness, and our willingness to organize. So I also want to express my deepest gratitude to the elders, gathered at this conference, because I saw my auntie, my mom, Shevanhu, Uncle Imani, I saw many great person who, spent his life and also continue, who shared his sacrifices and have continued this struggle with unwavering dedication. Your story, your experience, and your lifelong commitment are priceless gift to our generation. Because of you, his legacy is not just remembered, it is alive. So for the conclusion, I want to say the greatest tribute we can pay Kwame Ture is not simply to honor his memory, but to continue the work he devoted his life to the liberation, unity, and total sovereignty of Africa. forward ever, backward never. Thank you for the revolution.
Forward ever.
Red para la revolution.
Viva
Ready for
Kwame Ture,
revolution.
viva.
Viva.
Our people. We are not running for mayor. We're not running for president. No changes can come from the top down. We're not stupid. Changes can only come from the bottom up. The masses and the masses alone can make them. If you want to learn something from the 60s, the lesson is simple. Organize the masses of the people.
Kwame Ture.
Good to see you. So many people. Fantastic. Oh my goodness.
In the desert, and I'm doing any research with capital and labor without ever having heard of Karl Marx, I will come to the same conclusion. Karl Marx did not invent socialism. If I'm sitting in Libya, in the desert, and I'm doing any research with capital and labor without ever having heard of Karl Marx, I will come to the same conclusion that he did. That any time capital seeks to dominate labor, there'll be a ruthless, uncompromising struggle on the part of labor until it comes to crush capital and dominate it. This is the fact. My history demonstrates that. We came here as chattel slaves for centuries. We fought and fought and fought until we crushed it. Now we're just slaves of the wage, and now we've got to rise up and crush that one. That's to declare that Karl Marx didn't invent socialism. It's there for all to see. Karl Marx's great contribution to the world was in the area of historical materialism and dialectical materialism, something you need to know if you know about socialism. But since you don't know about socialism, you don't even know the words. And not only did Jeremy keep you ignorant, you stay ignorant. You won't ever go read a book about socialism. Why read a book about socialism? They already told me in my class it ain't no good. You will not even read a book about socialism. Why, you don't even read a book about your history. We've come to inspire you to learn. We've come to tell you that when you come to serve a people, you must know as much as you can. The more you know, the better able you are to serve people. You must come to understand that the only way you can think about your people's struggle is when you are involved in your people's struggle. And if you're not involved in your people's struggle, don't fool yourself. Don't let capitalism let you think that you're thinking about your people.
Think that you think.
The capitalist system makes people stupid and then makes them arrogant in their stupidity. Not only do they not know, but they do not want to know. I've seen it everywhere. As a matter of fact, they take positions based on total ignorance. I told you, I'm anti-capitalist.
Okay, comrades. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade, for organizing today.
Thank you.
Bye.